Walking through Baltimore, I have to keep my eyes open and ready for anything. Violence is all around me. When I'm traveling alone, I find myself looking over my shoulder or crossing the street to avoid people. As a young black man in Baltimore, I'm trying to be a positive person, but I've often feel trapped in a negative environment. When I was younger, it seemed like we had more places to go. I used to go to our neighborhood rec center, but in 2012, the city closed many of our rec centers. Now, teens have nowhere to go when they're not in school and often get in trouble on the streets. I came to believe that the only way to survive would be to toughen up and show no fear. I turned to mixed martial arts as a way to protect myself and the people around me. At first, it was about being strong, about being able to handle anything that came my way. But soon, I realized that training was giving me things that were even more important. Training was giving me confidence. It was making me healthy. And it was giving me a safe place to go. A place where I was surrounded by friends and adults who cared about me. Martial arts has become a passion for me. And I think that other young people deserve safe places where they can follow their passions too. Because teens in Baltimore have nothing to do in their free time, they feel cut off from the world, isolated, and lost. If young people like me had more opportunities, more recreation facilities, more mentors, more internships, and more jobs, it would transform our city.
Hello, everyone. This film you just got done watching is my film. My name is Ricardo Ampero. I come from an organization called Readiness Youth Media. We made this film in 2015, early 2015, with for a organization called Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The film is centered around safety in Baltimore City, and I kind of share my personal story of how I dealt with the safety issue in Baltimore City growing up in the Baltimore City public school system when I was in high school. Basically, growing up as a high school student, it's a lot of distractions, a lot of challenges that I face going home and from school. Like I kind of said in the film, I look over my shoulder to make sure it's nothing coming towards me. I make sure that my surroundings are safe, and basically I shouldn't have to go through that, but that's the stuff that I had to go through, and I kind of had to open up and really share that through my film. So that's the message that I was trying to get out. It's a safety issue. And, also I kind of pointed out in the film that teens, when they're not in school, they really don't have nothing to do. If you're not enrolled in a sport, or if you can't, if you don't have any resources like I had, it's nothing for you to really do but hang out in the street. So more mentors, more internships, and more jobs is kind of my message for teens that we need that in our city. So I come from Readiness Youth Media. We produce, we have a middle school program. We have 2 high school programs. We have graphic design. We have a graphic design class, and we also have a mentoring video project class where we do filming and video. That's where I produce the film at. And we also have a production side. That's kind of where I do my work now, because I went up in level, so now I'm a youth apprentice. First, I was a youth student, and now I'm a youth apprentice, and I work for the production side, producing work for clients, editing, going on shoots, traveling outside of town, and just meeting new people and networking. So that's what I do now. And yeah, thank you for just watching the film, and I hope you got the message that I was trying to put out.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ricardo. That was a very powerful film and an equally powerful story and message that you gave us. I'm Michelle Cahill. Was deeply pleased and gratified last year to be able to be on a panel here on youth development and school design. Karen Pittman and I have been colleagues. I've reconnected with people from Little Rock from many years ago. We won't say how many. Been doing youth development and education work for a long time, and I'm very happy to be able to be introducing you today to Russlynn Ali, who is the CEO and founder of the XQ Institute, which is dedicated to reimagining American education and in particular rethinking high school. Russlynn, as you've read in your materials, served as Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights in the United States Department of Education in the Obama administration, and she was the senior advisor to the Secretary of Education on all issues of equity. She has a long history of commitment to equity, commitment to young people, and commitment to opportunity. She was a vice president of the Education Trust and founded Ed Trust West in Oakland. XQ Institute is located in Oakland. Russlynn is a lawyer by training, graduate of Northwestern, so she's had some Midwest experience too, for those of you from that area. But most importantly, she has dedicated her life from her early years and starting as a teacher in Antigua, all the way to now, to powerful notions of equity and justice in our society. And we're really delighted. I know that Ready by 21 is delighted to hear today from Russlynn Ali.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. And thank you to Michelle Cahill. I will tell you the roles are reversed, because if you really want to know anything about system change or how you do the really hard work of transforming lives for young people, especially around their high school experience, there is almost bar none better than Michelle Cahill. So for being in the trenches with all of us for so long and for teaching all of us so much, thank you, Michelle. And thank you to Ricardo for reminding us why we do what we do every day. That was really powerful. And if there is a hero among us, it is you. No doubt. So thank you. And really, while you're at it, will you give yourselves a round of applause? Because when I think about justice in any community, a real manifestation of justice, whether it's city government working better or folks ensuring that kids have a healthy place and a safe place to be at all hours of the day, or whether it is ensuring juvenile justice at its core, you are it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be here today with you. When we think about what it takes to fulfill the really important mission that you all wake up every day to do, how we get young people ready for college and career and life by their adulthood, I can't help but be sobered by what the data are telling us today. That developed and developing countries are outpacing us in droves. That the achievement gap is pervasive and is persistent. Perhaps no data portend a more disturbing future than this. That in the last 40 years, the achievement gap has remained stagnant. That by the end of high school, for African American and Latino students in particular. They are reading and doing math where white students are at the end of middle school. I can't help but every day think about what was the point of high school for them. Now, most will tell us that it's that nasty and sticky correlation of race and poverty, right? That you all know so well. But it doesn't matter how much money your family makes. It doesn't matter whether you're learning English for the first time. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. What matters most is our schools and the opportunities they do or do not provide for the students they are meant to serve. What you just saw was access to the courses that young people will need to succeed when they get out of high school. And what you just saw was that nearly 50% of our high schools don't even offer physics or calculus. If you are in a school serving mostly students of color, your chances of getting those courses drop to 33%. No matter how we cut the real big gaps, the things that we as a country can do something about, the opportunity gaps, we see that poor kids and kids of color get less of everything that we know makes a difference in public education, especially that which matters most in school, and that is the quality of the instructor in the classroom. I could go through data point after data point that shows that it's what we do as adults that make the biggest difference when it comes to kids really being ready by 21. And as much as we are all motivated in this room by the moral imperative, by the demographic imperative, for almost the first time in our country, we are witnessing this problem happening across the board for all of our young people. The land of opportunity, the chances of upward mobility are almost no more. Now, our high schools, in particular, that critical juncture between adolescence and adulthood, our high schools haven't changed very much in 100 years. That is a design problem. At a time when 65% of the jobs that are students in school today, 65% of students in school today will have jobs that don't exist today. We don't know what they are. At a time when the achievement gap is so pervasive, at a time when everything around us has changed, at a time when we are preparing young people for a world that does not exist, we asked whether we could rethink high school, whether we could flip conventional school design on its head, whether we could bring out the best of American ingenuity, whether we could anchor ourselves in student voice, whether we could help the movement that we saw afoot across the country. The kind of mass movement that's needed is the kind that existed 100 years ago, when we were responding to the needs of an industrial society, when we, as a country, we instilled a belief that high school education was fundamental for our vital nation. The movement reflected and led a kind of changing social fabric, and high schools became the paramount to our strength in a changing society. They were powerful 100 years ago in their roles of prepping young people to be change agents, to be builders of society, to open the door for opportunity. So we set about listening to young people, really listening to young people, taking lessons from the likes of so many of you in this room to anchor ourselves in student voice.
We're kind of worried about the future, and we're stressed because we're not prepared to be involved in the future.
I never thought I was going to go to college. School changes the way you see things.
My intended major is going to be political science and or criminal justice, and I want my career to be in a lawyer.
In the future, I want to own my own business, animation company.
Something I'm really wanting to do is architecture, and that's kind of what my heart desires.
I intended to major in molecular biology and a minor in French.
And I would like to be an OBGYN.
That would probably be number one, to actually build a relationship with my teachers and my teachers to build a relationship with me.
I had people that would actually sit down with me and listen to what I had to say. It started to develop a stronger personality in me because my voice mattered.
Someone with a job outside of the education system can help steer you towards a career path that you might want to do.
Not everybody learns the same way, so you may feel ignorant or stupid, but it's not that you don't get it, it's just that you don't get the way it's being taught.
So obviously either you need to pick the student's brain, why, or you need to give them something that will interest them.
If the community in the school was set up in the way that we all agree about, by the age of 18, we will all know where we will be headed in life.
Any successful person will tell you that I failed 100 times, and then that 101 time is when that success happened, right? If you don't have that, the ability to fail built into your education paradigm, you're not going to become a full human being in my eyes.
This idea of mutual respect needs to be fostered from the moment that we enter the education system.
It's one thing to sit there and let a person talk about what they want, and there's another thing to actually act on it. And I think that if students were given a chance to express the voice that they have, that we will have a more innovative learning environment.
We want this for our school, community, like I said before. You know, it will be just an amazing thing.
So we asked ourselves, what if we called on education inventors everywhere to self-assemble and rethink one of the largest public systems in the world? We invited communities and students, leaders everywhere, the noblest of teachers. We asked them to reimagine what could be. Could we make learning wilder, wider, inexhaustible, with a reckless disregard for boredom? Could we make it a challenge and a desire, something craveable and ownable? Could we create a place where the love of teaching and the love of learning collide? Could we do it with rigor? Could we help communities everywhere engage in a process of design thinking, grounded in the voices of young people, made smarter with a rich array of resources, to think not only about community assets in the labor market today, to ground ourselves not only in what young people need to know for future success, to be informed by the latest brain science that reminds us that high school is not too late. Could we walk through the infrastructures necessary for system change so that school mission, school culture was anchored in the needs of young people, so that community assets and resources and networks and partnerships were brought together so that schools could become the hub of community? Could we bring the best of community together around the needs of young people? And could we nest it then in the thorny stuff? These infrastructure pieces that always seem to stop system change. Thorny questions about governance and finance and system and data. But by flipping school design on its head, what I mean is we get to this part after we develop new cultures and new missions to take young people from where they are today and get them to where they need to be. Now, we have a big task to do, because when we asked young people and their families and communities everywhere to help us rethink, when we shared the learnings of the best minds in the country, 250 of the best research and the best models made to the best of our ability, easy to understand and palpable. And when we asked America to rethink, we saw something extraordinary.
If you get the grassroots people, the regular people who have a passion for education but maybe feel, intimidated because they don't have a degree or they don't have whatever, and get them passionate about it, they're going to talk to their neighbors, and that's how it will change, I believe. It's getting the people, the boots on the ground involved.
I absolutely love the way XQ is having us work together. This is a problem we can only solve, really, if we come together as a community of both educators and students.
When I found out about this, I was like, oh, sure, this would be cool. And then I unboxed this, and it's like, I can really do something to change our education system.
Imagine an open source environment that is relentlessly sharing what we know, what we're learning, and changing the world.
I have a young son, and I wonder what is the world going to be like when he is 15 or 25 or 50.
So what's at stake is continuing education the way it is at status quo, and so many kids not getting any opportunities.
I'm so excited about this. I could cry. This is so beautiful because our potential is just endless, isn't it?
Your XQ Institute folks, they probably know me. I've called them about 5 times. Every time I call, they'll say, everything is possible.
We can take this thing and make it something amazing, a model of teaching and learning excellence for students and teachers across this country and across the world. I think that's pretty cool.
Got nearly 10,000 folks signed up. Applications across the country in every state, DC and Puerto Rico. What we saw before us was an opportunity to come together, to envision and build the ways forward. These folks remind me every day of the enduring values that bind us: leadership, creativity, equality, success, and the simple promise that you all work for every day, and that is that every child in this country deserves an education that prepares them for life. The community is reflective of the diversity that is our country. Educators to entrepreneurs, parents, artists, lawyers, writers, scientists, students, in neighborhoods and towns everywhere. They are coming together to host workshops in malls. They are eliciting the support of their policymakers who are standing up beside them. They are already rethinking how to do the difficult work today. Teams have assembled everywhere. Adults and young people co-teaching with experts from across the community and world, mobilizing in support of the most valuable assets in their community, their kids. And what we're seeing is nothing short of inspiring.
We've been working for 4 long months on our XQ Super School application. Are we ready, team, to submit? Are we ready? Yeah! 1, 2, 3!
We're from Readiness, couldn't be prouder. 3, 2, 1. Submit. All right, wish us luck.
Gosh, it's taken a minute and I'm so super excited. What?
Good job. High five, baby. This is for your future and our future and Emma's future and the whole world's future.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's Bob Belvans.
We are so excited. We finally got to submit this amazing application.
We have been wanting to start a school for a long time, and XQ helped us to focus and made us feel like it was possible. So thank you.
I feel like every moment in my professional career has led to this moment.
If I don't get this, for instance, if I don't get this grant, I'm going to make these changes. We're going to make changes. Changes have to happen. We're going to put the work in anyways, and we're going to come up with something.
So I noticed in an Annapolis paper today that change is already happening. These teams are coming together and activating, becoming change agents in their community. Today, the Maryland legislature took up a bill that would free this school up from some of the restrictions currently facing it so that it can rethink everything from start to finish. And with educators and community together, be made allowed to think big and bring the community resources to bear, bring their rights to bear, and scale if it's successful for young people. These folks are making it our moonshot, our Mars landing, our Voyager of learning. It feels very much like the future of American ingenuity. Because what we are seeing is when people are empowered, when they come together to think big with information and commitment, amazing things can happen. I thank you for everything you do to empower them every day, to know they can be agents of change, and for all that you do to ensure that young people can have healthy and successful lives. There is truly no greater responsibility or purpose. I'm happy to open up to questions, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone, so you've seen all those teams working, and we're going to do something a little different than the usual, everybody standing up and do a question, which is to ask you all if you would take 5 minutes to talk at your table. and to come up with a couple of questions or comments, whatever, and then we will start taking them by tables. And I think this gives us more of a chance to process and think about what it really means for this room of almost 500 youth development specialists and advocates and people who have been devoting their lives to young people to think about this challenge of rethinking high school. So give us some questions, give us some comments, give us your thoughts. 5 minutes, go! Can we have your attention? Okay, I hope we have some tables that are ready to ask Russlynn some questions or make some comments. Actually, everybody else is going to have to be quiet or we're not going to be able to get them. Okay.
Or if they're having more fun this way, we just do that.
Yeah, well, they can go back to it, but no. Okay. Okay, we've got this table right here. Do we have a mic? Yes, here it comes. Okay.
Hello. Greetings from Texarkana, Texas, Arkansas. I just wanted to know, or our table wanted to know, could you explain what XQ is? What is the materials that are in the box? What's the criteria?
So if you have 3 hours, right, I can explain all about what it is. I've got to tell you, I'm still working on this thing called what do they call it? An elevator pitch or something. Here's the thing. There's a genesis that I won't do justice to try and explain really quickly. A lot of it included some of the best minds in the country, the likes of which, again, this woman to my right, Michelle Cahill. It is a national competition to really rethink the American high school. Just that simple. It was a risk. When I talked about the kinds of questions we were asking ourselves, we didn't know whether it could be done, whether it could be successful. Lots of lessons heretofore, lots of research, lots of experience, lots of stalwarts upon whose shoulders we always sit and stand. But it is at its core, it hopes to act as a catalyst and seed a movement that will finally put the finger pointings aside, bring the best of who we are as a country, and do some thinking about this system that has been stuck in time.
One more quick question. Are you considering using the Readiness framework for this?
I'm so sorry?
Are you considering using the Readiness framework for this program, the XQ?
So we have so much of that framework embedded. What you saw on the screen, as we talk about the 3 phases, discover, design, and develop, we've developed 13 rigorous learning modules to go alongside each phase of the journey. And so many key elements of the Readiness framework, as I understand it, are embedded throughout the process, especially when we talk about learning in the 21st century and anchoring ourselves in what students need today and what the networks and partnerships are around the community to ensure they get it. Michelle, would you agree on that?
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree on it. And Stephanie gave me the new document this morning. And as some of you know, I've been involved in a colleague of Karen and others for many, many years, co-developing, as many of us have been, these kinds of frameworks. So I think the simple answer is yes. The more complex answer is it's going to all be developed by everyone, right? Because there's the competition dimension, but it's unleashed.
Yes.
That's the dimension. And I think the one question I'd like to give to Russlynn, and then I'll go back to the tables, but it relates to this, is what's often in these kind of meetings, when people talk about both the framework and others, it's as if there's the youth development side and we're looking to collaborate or coordinate with education. And you're thinking differently about it than that. in this revisioning, whatever. Could you just speak to that a little bit? How is this world, and how have you tried to engage with that?
You just said it, right? To try to ensure that, you know, this space has been so siloed, too siloed for far too long. In the education space, I've had the real honor and privilege to work at every level of the system: federal, state, outside, inside, think tank, advocacy, organizing, practice, and policy. And it is the siloed nature in so many ways that is sometimes mislabeled as recalcitrance, but mostly just the obstacle that we needed to overcome. To really bring everybody who has a vested interest in ensuring that schools work better and do things differently together. And we hope, at least, that's the genesis of that coming organically is what we're seeing across the country.
Great. Okay, let's take maybe 2 tables. Let's have 2 tables give us questions, and then, so right in the middle there and here. So how about right there? You got a mic there, right?
Okay, we have 23 questions, but we'll only ask 2.
You can call me.
Public versus private, will it be a private school or a public school?
All public.
All public, okay.
All public.
That was quick, so I get 3. Sustainable funding, is there going to be sustainability?
So we're in this for the long haul. I work with an organization called the Emerson Collective that is founded and chaired by Lorene Powell-Jobs. Her humility, commitment, and sense of responsibility is to ensure that we are in this for the long haul. We're looking at least 5 years of a couple $1 million a year at a minimum for every one of the quote-unquote winners. But I got to tell you, with this much genius that we're witnessing, it's hard to see. It's hard to, those labels of winners and what necessarily follows as losers, they make me cringe because this is about cultivating these ideas and helping them manifest. Do we expect at least 5 of these ideas to manifest in what we call super schools today, or at least be on the journey with us to becoming a super school for what will take 5 to 10 years? Absolutely, and we are in it for that long. It is, though, very much, as you all know better than most, extra dollars and supplemental dollars, they will be able to help sustain and spur the kind of creative genius that we're seeing in communities everywhere. It is as much using the money that we have today, much more wisely. Some of the modules go very deep in finance and how to think about everything from procurement of what and of whom when it comes to our teaching force, and ensuring that the upwards of 10,000 that most states provide for high school education is used in a way that will serve students better. It is also about empowering all of us with a kind of policy tool and advocacy voice to ensure that we get more money in the pot to begin with. But undoubtedly, at least everything that we can muster to bring private resources to bear to help these. But again, because, look, as Lorene often says, even if we got 10 or even if 100 of these schools were to bubble up, that will be amazing for the young people in them. But as much as we can to ensure, work to ensure that we are able to sustain and replicate such that the conditions for what it takes to be a super school can be made possible everywhere is our big goal.
And this is the last question. How many will be selected in first round?
We need to take another table, okay? We need to take another table. Here you go. Thank you.
Hello. Exciting presentation, inspiring. My name is Emily Blake. I'm with the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. Our table was really wondering, short of applying ourselves, how do we tap into this movement that you're building?
Oh, well, thank you so much. And LA has got some hot teams. Thank you. Look, how we tap into this, so we have this week is a really tough week because we are deciding which teams go on to the develop phase. which is, I think, maybe a little like semifinalists. And these are really tough decisions to make. For sure, helping us root for everyone that has been a part of this movement to date, helping us continue to empower the participants, the thousands of which are in the LA region alone. And we are bringing a bus to you, to all of you, chipped out a super school bus, to really get this movement into the hands of participants in XQ community everywhere, and to help share and spread and empower the transformational work that we are seeing across the country, not just through XQ, but in those places where magnificent things are happening for young people, including in so much of the work that you all are doing, and help magnify that, to give that a voice. You can also, the kits that you saw on the screen, if you would like one, we are happy to, if you go onto our website at xqsuperschools.org, they are free of charge, and we will get them. Superschool, thank you, sorry. Superschool.org. I think if you do Superschools, it gets there too, because I made that mistake earlier. Superschool.org, we can get you a kit. And really, I need to be asking you that question, right? What we can be doing to support you, because that's how we're going to get to real sustainable change, not vice versa.
Great. Anybody over here? Any table over there? I didn't get anybody on that side of the room. Yes, no? Thinking about it? Go ahead.
Hi, Nicole from Texas. Real quick question. As an out-of-school time provider, have out-of-school time programs or after-school programs been part of the conversation? Because if public ed changes, then why we exist is going to change too. So I was just curious about what the conversation looked like there.
Well, from the applications, we are seeing lots of integration with ancillary programs and after-school programs in the confines of the school day. We make a very big deal of that module we call networks and partnerships, because it is precisely the kind of amazing things that providers like you are make happen every day, that we want to get into the world of, sort of, as I said, the notion that there were education silos. Those silos ought to break down. We are also seeing some really amazing and creative ways where communities are really thinking out the box about those kinds of programs too. So stay tuned. What we are hoping to do, as we're seeing the kind of ideas that folks have submitted and that are still coming in, is to create a very publicly accessible idea bank where we can showcase all of these ideas and all of these learnings. Everything within the competition will all be open source. The modules are up there for everyone to get their hands on, and to help make them better. If there are things that we need to add, please let us know, because it's your experience that really we hope to help bring to bear, as we said earlier. And although some of these, the programs that are not full schools won't be counted in the sort of super school competition for eligibility purposes, we want to make sure that we help cultivate them and seed them as well, because they have a lot to share with full schools and with the field writ large.
We wanted you to talk a little bit about how you'll measure success once the schools are up and running.
Well, that's a question that we're all asking ourselves right now, right? Because the notion of accountability, as we saw it up until just a few months ago, is very different moving forward. So, look, at the end of the day, for schools to be successful, kids have to learn. And they have to learn a lot to be ready for the demands of today. So we are working with among the best minds of evaluation and metrics. We are thinking through a new kind of accountability, as the country is thinking through new kinds of accountability now that the notion of being held accountable for student achievement is really rests with the states. And given the now somewhat, I shouldn't say somewhat, you can tell I'm a little biased, now very limited federal role in defining accountability post the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. But we also know that no one assessment, right, and no set of assessments as we currently know them is enough. We are looking very much at thinking through the kinds of opportunities and skills that young people need to have and know and be able to do, with state standards at its core, but making sure that opportunities are provided, that we catch young people before they slip, that their teachers and their students have the supports that they need to succeed, and that the road for opportunity is equal and equitable. Then, with every fiber of my being, I know that we'll see equality in results.
Okay, we can take one more team. We have two more. Okay, we'll do back here and right here. Okay.
Hi. So you, in your last response, you said equity. So my question is, how are we making this equitable to schools where we're still trying to meet those basic needs of students, families, and communities?
Equity and success are synonymous. And you can't have success without equity. It's not just the demographic imperative or the moral imperative or the economic imperative. You know, I used to say 15 years ago that by 2015, the Census Bureau says that the majority of public school children will be children of color. We got there a year early, right? And when I say catch young people before they slip, it's all young people. It's each and every child. And that is going to be different for students with disabilities, and that might be different for students that are learning the language, and that might be different for students that are currently hobbled by the achievement gap. But we have all the evidence that we need to know that poor kids, kids of color, students learning the language, and students with even severe cognitive disabilities can learn at the highest rates and highest levels when taught at the highest levels. What's been lacking is political and civic will. That, combined with the evidence, equity it's strategy now.
So I guess I have a follow-up question, which is kind of what are those strategies that you're looking for? Because you're taking applications from lots of different schools with lots of different issues. Some schools have students who they can't meet their minimum needs of having breakfast or having a supportive family. And so how does your selection process take that into account? And I did notice a lot of, or maybe a little bit of a lack of diversity in some of the video. And so that's, I think, what our conversation started to kind of talk about.
Yeah, so we asked folks very loosely a couple of days before submission to send us videos. It was not, as they were pushing send, it was not at all a mandatory part of the competition, totally voluntary. And we got an amazing subset, lots of which you saw on the screen, but not a set that is reflective of the teams in communities everywhere that are across the country. So look, we're looking, so yes, we are the applicants and the schools that they are trying to open are reflective of our country as a whole, with a significant portion in communities of color, with students that, like I said, are hobbled by the achievement gap, students with disabilities, English language learners. How we will choose these, the long and short is we're looking at schools that are reflective of America today, that meet the needs of their communities, every community, that get kids from where they are to where they need to be, and that redesign and transform a high school experience so that it serves everyone better. Equity is a core value, virtue, and belief of who we are, and I have no doubt that with the amazing set of reviewers and judges that we have working for us, that we will see that reflected in the winners. We wouldn't have it any other way.
I know we could stay here and talk for a long time, but I want to respect the fact that we've gotten a little bit past 4:30, and I know Chris probably has some housekeeping things to tell you. But if I'm allowed, and I think you'll announce this soon, I had the pleasure of being one of the 15 reviewers of the applications. And this was absolutely a labor of love. And so there's nothing like planning a national meeting and reading 25 applications.
I cannot imagine.
That took, an hour plus each to really read and score. And so I just want to say two things quickly. Well, three. First, go to the website and have fun. Explore it. Even if there was no competition, it is absolutely the best collection of information about how to rethink and redesign schools that I've ever seen. I'm not surprised that it's that good, given the person who was helping to facilitate it and make it happen. But not only is it wonderfully powerful content, it's incredibly well organized and just fun to be able to explore. So go look at it. Number two, really, the movement has already started. The fact that 8,000 folks applied, that the quality of the applications was such that the 5 that they select really will need the money to completely break out of the box and do things that have not been done before. That it would take 5 years to change all the policies to do. So they really need the incentive. But even at the bottom of my pile, and it was a hard pile to sort of score, were schools that would significantly change the lives of young people if those things that they said they were going to do, they did. And many of the things that they wanted to do could be done with modest changes. And so if you think of that scale of inspiring folks to move forward, a lot can happen to move us up from the bottom. And then the last thing that I'll say is, as inspiring as the applications were, the commitment to the things you were asking about, the commitment to equity, the commitment to really making sure the partnerships that were being proposed are real and deep and intentional and equal, was there in the scoring rubric. So it's there. These folks are the real deal. Go to the website, learn about it. Whether there's another application or not, this is an opportunity that we can't afford not to use to take the opportunity to go back home and say, if we were to talk to young people and start to design from scratch, what would we come up with? And then even if it takes us 5 years to put all the things in place, we at least have a plan. And right now, we don't have a plan. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Russlynn. Thank you. Chris?